working in the spirit of Hampton Roads. WVEC presents 13 News at 11.
It looks like Saddam Hussein has had enough, and the United Nations says he's ready for a formal ceasefire. It's also officially time for spring with the opening day of America's favorite pastime. Good evening, I'm Barbara Ciara. By this time tomorrow, the Gulf War could officially be history. The United Nations Security Council is expected to vote tomorrow morning on a ceasefire, one that Saddam Hussein has apparently agreed to honor, but the Iraqis say they have no other choice. Saddam will have to destroy his dangerous weapons, among other things. One of those other things could include creating a safe haven for Kurdish refugees trying to flee Iraq. It comes in the wake of reports that Saddam's troops are killing people along the northern border. But Security Council members say it's still not a done deal.
Well, I think we're going to try to crystallize an idea at this stage. I don't want to lead you any further than I think probably you already have been led on this. We'll wait and see whether it can be done. The idea, obviously, is to save human lives.
Secretary of State James Baker says there are no words to describe what he saw today on the northern border of Iraq. Baker flew over the area where the Kurdish refugees have set up camps. He says the world should get involved in the relief effort. And when it comes to laying blame, Baker says Saddam Hussein is the reason for the mass exodus of his own people and deplorable conditions.
The leadership in Iraq are, in effect, depopulating the northern part of Iraq, forcing people to flee. It's inhumane, it's brutal, and it's outrageous.
Baker has moved on to Israel tonight, where he'll try to get Middle East leaders to sit down and really work on a peace plan for the region. The Kurds are going to be getting a little helping hand from Europe. The leaders of the European community are meeting tonight in Luxembourg. They've all agreed to dole out $180 million in aid to the refugees fleeing Iraq. Kurdish activists are on hand for the post-war discussions just to make sure their problem gets top billing. Reconstruction is at the top of Kuwait's agenda, and when the contracts start coming out, a lot of U.S. firms will probably get a fair share of the business, including some here in Hampton Roads. In Chesapeake today, about 350 small business owners found out what steps they need to take to get a piece of the pie. They've been learning about exporting supplies and getting subcontracts. There's a lot of work to be done. Damage estimates in Kuwait range from $40 to $100 billion. Congressman Norman Sisiski is spearheading this seminar.
Obviously, it's going to be easier for bigger businesses, but that's why I said subcontracting may be the thing. And this is what this is all about, getting into the government computers to allow the main contractors to know which companies are available and how they can be, how they're able to bid.
At least one Virginia company already has a contract with Kuwait. If you want more information on how to get involved, just call the Hampton Roads Chamber of Commerce. You'd think that after all the work General Norman Schwarzkopf did for Operation Desert Storm, he'd want a reward. Maybe not. Newsweek is reporting that the general has turned down an offer from President Bush to be Army Chief of Staff. The reason? The magazine says the general wants to retire, write his memoirs, and hit the lecture circuit. U.S. military command in Saudi Arabia says it doesn't know anything about the reports. In other news tonight, families of 2 sailors killed in the USS Iowa explosion have filed suit against the Navy. They're claiming negligence and wrongful death. 47 sailors died in April of 1989 after a gun turret exploded on the Norfolk-based ship. An attorney representing several of the victims' families says the total number of suits he plans to file could run into the billions of dollars. In Roanoke, Virginia Military Institute is gearing up to take over the witness stand tomorrow. At stake, over 150 years of all-male tradition. The Justice Department wrapped up its presentation today. The government says VMI is violating the civil rights of women by not allowing them to go to the school. But not all women agree, including Suzanne Redd. Her husband and sons are VMI graduates.
Should be treated the same, but not in this instance. And I really can't explain except that VMI I don't think, if they didn't have VPI in the state, I think VPI, if they want to go to a military school, they could go to VPI.
Elsewhere, talk about on again, off again. The Los Angeles police chief is back on the job, at least for now. A judge has taken Chief Daryl Gates off suspension. He was put on 2 weeks or 2 months paid leave last week in the wake of brutality charges against his department. The city wanted time to figure out who was at fault in the beating of a motorist. The judge says Gates can work while the investigation continues. A Seattle seafood restaurant may soon be in court for catching a severe dose of Oscar fever. Orion Pictures is threatening Ivor's restaurants and seafood bars with a lawsuit because of a clam suit. The restaurant is having to pull its ad showing a Kevin Costner lookalike dancing with an actor in a clam suit. Perhaps it means it's okay to dance with wolves, but not with a mussel. Coming up next for Portsmouth, schools need more money, but what will the city have to give up? And a little later, the shuttle astronauts have their own little amusement park in outer space. And she was once a box office hit, but now Nancy Reagan is busting out at the bookstore.
It's a new day, there's a brand new way. Go fish! Now you got a choice. Rejoice, go fish! No matter what you're after, you're gonna get your wish. Go fish!
At Long John Silver's, we have a lot of ways to go. Batter dipped, tender baked, or lightly breaded.
Go fish! Long John Silver's!
Go for our batter dipped fish and butterfly shrimp special, just $2.99.
I'm Dr. James Stark for the Family Health Project. On the average, 8 out of 10 cancer cases are related to diet and lifestyle. So here's what you can do to prevent cancer before it happens. Stop smoking. Go easy on the alcohol. Trim fat from your diet. Shield yourself from the sun. For more cancer prevention tips, call the American Cancer Society or 1-800-CENTERA.
If you start any remodeling project without planning carefully, you could be left in the dark.
Honey?
So let the Enlightened Remodeling video light the way. It will guide you through everything from choosing a contractor to creating the beauty of a home lit by window light. The Enlightened Remodeling video, just $2.95 at Anderson Window Center stores.
Quality window and door in Portsmouth. Franklin Building Materials in Franklin.
Her soul thrilled with complete knowledge. This was the glistening, forbidden apple. Obsession for Men, Calvin Klein. Now your gift with any $27 Obsession for Men purchase at Tallheimer's.
Hampton School Superintendent Dr. Don Musselman will be taking an extended summer break at the end of the school year. He's going to take advantage of the early retirement program that the General Assembly is offering. It will mean 5 extra years in benefits. Musselman says the offer was just too good to pass up, and it will save the school district some money. The Portsmouth School District is asking for more money, but the city manager says he's no magician, and that's what he's going to need, a magic wand, in order to come up with the cash. Wayne Norton has spent this evening telling city leaders that he knows the schools need help, but the school board has set its sights too high. And our Sheldon Ingram has details now, perhaps grim details?
You can call it grim. These are some hard times for city managers as they try to deal with dried up city budgets. And this is another chapter to the story of the Portsmouth budget blues. The school board wants $10 million each year for the next decade to make capital improvements. But Wayne Norton says that's the entire capital improvement budget for the entire city. And although he has dreams of a better school system, the city must be guided by financial reality.
Portsmouth city manager is sitting in an uncomfortable seat these days. He must find a way to rob Peter to pay Paul. He pulled city leaders together this evening and shot straight. $10 million a year for school improvements is just not reality. He says other projects will suffer, even if schools got just half the money they wanted. For example, drainage and street repairs would lose $2.2 million during the next 5 years. Industrial and economic development would lose $1.1 million. And the projects would play catch-up for years to come.
Those projects would be considered later on in future CIPs, but of course they would be competing with other projects as well. So they would be deferred, and right now we don't know how long the time that would be.
The city would still have to raise the other half of the $10 million. One way, taxes. Orton's office figures real estate and property taxes would need to increase by 22 cents to raise the $5 million. But Orton doesn't want to raise taxes. City councilman and former school board member Johnny Clemens says the school board should get the $10 million, but he's leaving the job of coming up with the money to the city manager.
And I think the city manager is going to need the flexibility to exercise those options. He is a city manager, and he will come up with a combination of factors that need to happen.
But you would have to vote on them ultimately.
He will make the recommendations, and we will vote on it, yes.
Raising taxes, layoffs, what is your idea on that?
We're not going to raise taxes, number one, and we don't anticipate layoffs.
Now, the city could sell some of its assets to come up with the money, the old Churchland High School and the Sleepy Hole Golf Course, just to name a few. The council will also make the ultimate decision when it votes on the overall capital improvement budget in October. And we'll certainly have more to come on this later on, Barbara.
Sounds like they've got a tough decision to make.
Tough decision.
Thank you, Sheldon. It's sad to think that more infants die in the United States than in any other industrialized nation, but things are getting better. Our infant mortality rate has dropped 6%, the biggest decline in a decade.
The decline in the infant death rate appears to be primarily in the neonatal period, or the first few weeks after birth. About half of the overall decline was from a drop in mortality from respiratory distress syndrome, possibly due to improvements in therapies to treat this syndrome.
There's not so good news for adults, though. Our life expectancy is being whittled away. It's down to just a little under 75 years. Forget the 4 food groups and let's start over. That's what some doctors want to do. They say the basics that have been drilled into our heads aren't equally healthy. We currently have meat, fruits and vegetables, dairy products and bread, and cereal. The new proposal, whole grains, vegetables, legumes, and fruit. Kind of makes you want to ask, hey, where's the beef? And just when you thought it was safe for your kids to eat just like kids, guess again. The government now says children should join adults in a low-fat, low-cholesterol diet. So watch those after-school snacks. It could reduce their risk of heart attacks later in life. Well, I did get heart palpitations when I saw the temperature today. I said, oh, my goodness, summer is here already, Jeff Lawson.
20 degrees above normal. You're right. The normal high in the summer is right around 86. That's what we're at today. Wow. Very astute of you. Temperatures today exactly like we normally see in July. Not quite as humid today, though. When I come back, I'll talk about a few changes, though, in the forecast.
These people are in a total over their daily intake of fat and sodium.
Look how they suffer.
With lustful lasagna, tender young chicken,
Let me tell you.
all with a fraction of the forbidden fat and sodium you're allowed every day.
Yeah.
And who makes these little 95% fat-free numbers?
The one and only.
Stouffer's Lean Cuisine.
Taste you can love for life.
Imagine a gun law that police, politicians, and the National Rifle Association support. A gun law that actually works. It's an instant criminal records check on every gun store customer, and it's working right now in Virginia.